Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has declared that eliminating Hamas's top leadership would bring an end to the war in Gaza. He's accused Hamas of repeatedly derailing ceasefire efforts and ignoring the suffering of the residents of Gaza. Thousands of Israelis have rallied and marched in Tel Aviv, calling on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to reach a hostage deal with Hamas and bring an end to the war. Protesters have gathered in Tel Aviv and they blamed Netanyahu for derailing ceasefire negotiations and hindering the hostage deal. US President Donald Trump's top diplomat Marco Rubio has flown to Israel. Now, speaking before his departure, Rubio stressed that the US and President Trump were not happy about Israel's strikes in Qatar. He stated that talks would focus on hostage release and ending the war in Gaza, as well as a roadmap for rebuilding Gaza. US Trade Representative Jamieson Greer will attend a new round of talks with Chinese officials starting on Sunday in Madrid. Now, reportedly, discussions will cover trade, economic issues, and the Wednesday deadline for TikTok to divest its US assets. Greer will be joined by US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent for the talks with Chinese Vice Premier and other senior officials. Up to 150,000 people have gathered in central London for the Unite the Kingdom March, organised by far-right activist Tommy Robinson. Police stated that 25 arrests were made as officers faced significant aggression from protesters. A counter-demonstration by about 5,000 anti-racism campaigners also took place, with clashes erupting near Whitehall and Trafalgar Square. A fire was extinguished at the Qatari oil refinery in Russia's northwest after debris from a downed drone fell on the site. The regional governor has informed that no injuries have been reported so far. The refinery is one of Russia's largest, processing about 355,000 barrels of crude oil per day. Venezuela has accused the United States of illegally detaining a fishing vessel with 9 crew members in its exclusive economic zone. Venezuela's foreign minister has stated that the USS Jason Dunham destroyer boarded the boat for 8 hours, calling it a direct provocation. The incident comes amid soaring tensions as US steps up naval patrols targeting Venezuelan drug trafficking and increases pressure on Nicolas Maduro. A powerful explosion at a bar in Madrid has left 25 people injured, including 3 in a critical condition and 2 seriously hurt. The blast, which occurred at around 3 p.m. local time yesterday, caused structural damage to a residential building above the bar. Emergency services deployed over a dozen fire and medical units to clear the debris. The cause of the blast remains unknown till now. Well, viewers, those were the headlines and our top focus. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stated that the key to ending the war in Gaza and releasing all remaining hostages is removing Hamas leaders based in Qatar. Now, his statement comes after Israeli airstrikes hit Hamas targets in Doha, a move that has drawn sharp condemnation from Qatar, which has been hosting ceasefire negotiations. Now, Hamas has confirmed that 5 of its members have been killed in the attack, including the son of an exiled Gaza leader, Khalil al-Hayya. Qatar also says that one of its internal security officers is among the dead. Now, despite the strike, Hamas has stated that its top leaders and negotiating team has survived. Meanwhile, Netanyahu has accused the Hamas leadership in Qatar of deliberately blocking all ceasefire efforts to prolong the war, claiming that they have no regard for the people of Gaza. Hamas has responded by calling the strike an Israeli attempt to sabotage peace talks. The group has stated that its position remains firm and it will not release all hostages without a permanent ceasefire agreement, and it won't disarm until Palestinians achieve an independent state. Israel, on the other hand, has demanded that all hostages be freed and that Hamas lay down its arms as conditions to end the conflict. Meanwhile, as tensions escalate, efforts to reach a ceasefire hang in balance. With us on the broadcast is Major General Rajan Kochar, Senior Strategic and Defense Expert, joining us live from New Delhi. Thank you so much for taking our time speaking to us on NewsX World. A lot of high-octane developments have been taking place in the Middle East ever since Israeli strikes against Qatar. There's been a lot of international condemnation for the same. We've been seeing the UNGA as well endorse a resolution for the recognition of the Palestinian state. Now, Netanyahu has come out and stated that eliminating Hamas's top leadership would bring an end to the war. Hamas, meanwhile, has stated that the strikes have derailed the peace talks. Where do you think this is going to be headed next?
A very good morning, Pia. And these are interesting times, and allegations and counter allegations we are seeing from both sides. Where are we heading? That's a very important question. It's very clear from the intent of Netanyahu and intent of the Israel Defense Forces that they want to capture Gaza and keep it for a permanent sort of a thing. Because see, what is happening here in this entire region is West Bank is also being targeted, and a large number of Jewish settlements are being moved there with an intention that ultimately the domination of the West Bank will also be with Israel. With respect to Gaza, we have already seen the strategy. Already 60,000 reservists have been enlisted by Israel with the intention that fresh troops have to be ducted now, because now is going to be the final assault. And in the final assault, what is going to happen is that all the Palestinians are going to be concentrated in central Gaza. North and south are going to be vacated, and they will be in full control of Israel, because South Gaza is important because of the Rafah and the Shalom crossings there. And Israel wants to control this entire region. So there is no question of ceasefire. If anybody is talking of a ceasefire, and Marco Rubio is also coming there, we have seen enough of efforts which have been undertaken. So, in my assessment and my reading of the situation, I don't see a ceasefire happening any longer there. And with regard to the hostages, I think it has become a secondary objective for Netanyahu, because most of the hostages are either dead or have been released. Only a handful are there with them. So I think Netanyahu can sacrifice that much. And there is not much internal pressure also I see on Netanyahu, though demonstrations do take place in Jerusalem and other areas, Tel Aviv. But I don't find that kind of internal pressure on Netanyahu. As far as external pressure is concerned, you see, Netanyahu had the impunity to strike in Doha. And if you see, the objective of Israel has been to terminate the top leadership. Israel has done it with Hezbollah, and now Israel is doing with Hamas, because the moment you finish the top leadership, you make this terrorist organization rudderless. And because it takes some time for the new leadership to take shape. So I think in my ultimate analysis, I feel there is no sincerity as far as the ceasefire is concerned with respect to Israel. And my last point is the US support to Israel. It's a double speak from the United States, because on one hand, United States is saying that we want peace. On the other hand, the arms and the military supplies and the to fight this war have been, continuous. And it is not only the United States, the allies also, British, UK also, I would like to name here. They're also, sending all kinds of ammunition to Israel. So as long as United States is standing tall with Israel, I don't think Israel is going to blink. And this strategy of Israel of rejecting a two-state solution, because Netanyahu has been very, very categorical in his statement that he doesn't want a two-state here. So I don't think this two-state is going to come about. And United Nations and recognition of Palestine as a state is one part of it. It's not going to matter at all to Netanyahu, because as long as United States is there with him, I think he will push forward.
All right, sir. With that, I would like to thank you for taking out time, sharing your analysis of what we can expect in the near future as far as the Israel-Hamas war is concerned. Meanwhile, viewers, protesters in Tel Aviv have taken to the streets demanding that Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's government secure a ceasefire and bring home all remaining hostages. Now, the demonstration has come after families of the hostages gathered in the city accusing Netanyahu of sabotaging negotiations. Their frustration especially grew following the Israeli airstrike in Qatar earlier this week, which was aimed at Hamas leaders, which also threatened to derail US-backed troops' efforts. Let's listen in to what some of the family members of the hostages and other protesters have had to say.
השבוע היינו עדים לכישלון המפואר של ראש הממשלה, כאשר לקח הימור על חיי החטופים וניסה לחסל את צוות המשא ומתן של חמאס, בזמן שדנו בעסקה לשחרור בני מתן. הנשיא טראמפ אמר אתמול שבכל פעם שיש התקדמות במשא ומתן, נתניהו מפציץ מישהו. אבל לא את ראשי החמאס ניסה נתניהו להפציץ, אלא את הסיכוי שלנו, המשפחות, לקבל בחזרה את יקירנו.
מי שרוצה להחזיר הביתה את החטופים לא מפוצץ את צוות המשא ומתן של חמאס בעודם דנים בשחרור בני ויתר החטופים והחטופה. ראש הממשלה, אני קורא לך, בוא נשב בארבע עיניים, אבא מול אבא, בלי תקשורת, בלי ספינים ובלי הדלפות, ותענה לי רק על שאלה אחת. אם הילדים שלך היו בין החטופים, האם גם היו נמקים במנהרות יותר מ-700 יום? אז למה הילדים שלנו כן?
This week, we witnessed the Prime Minister's spectacular failure when he gambled with the lives of the hostages and attempted to assassinate senior Hamas officials during negotiations for the hostages' release. President Trump said yesterday that every time there is progress in the negotiations, Netanyahu bombs someone. But it wasn't Hamas leaders he tried to bomb. It was our chance as families to bring our loved ones home. It was our hope as citizens to live normal lives.
I'm here primarily for the families, to manifest solidarity with the families and the suffering of the hostages and the family. And of course, as a message to declare against the government that abandoning the hostages time after time, and while it's doing that, it's also abandoning all the values I grew up upon of solidarity, of brotherhood.
קודם כל להחזיר את החטופים, חוץ מזה להפסיק את המלחמה המחורבנת הזאת. ואת זה שאנחנו עומדים כאן, כל אחד עושה את זה, אנחנו עושים את זה בשביל כולם, אבל אנחנו עושים את זה עם כל אחד בשביל עצמו. אני ארגיש מאוד מאוד לא טוב אם אני לא אעמוד כאן להפגין, שחברים שלי נמצאים שם, וחברים שלי חיילים ומנסים שם, ומתים שם.
Shifting focus away from the Middle East towards the United Kingdom, we're now learning that far-right activist Tommy Robinson has addressed one of the biggest right-wing demonstrations in recent history of the United Kingdom. Speaking in central London, Robinson has told a crowd of more than 100,000 supporters that his movement marks the start of a counter-revolution against globalism. Listen in.
Today is the spark of a cultural revolution in Great Britain. This is our moment. The traitors in Westminster are watching right now. They are cowering, they are trembling. Keir Starmer, the Labour Party, the revolution has started. For the last 20 years, there has been a globalist revolution. They have attacked the family, they've attacked Christianity, they've opened the borders, they've flooded our nations. We are the start of a counter-revolution. They managed to silence us for 20 years with labels. Racist, Islamophobe, far right. They don't work anymore. The dam has well and truly burst.
The Unite the Kingdom rally, filled with English and British flags, also met with a massive policing operation. Now, according to the Metropolitan Police, they have deployed 1,000 officers and drafted in an extra 500 from other forces across the country to contain tensions and keep the far-right protesters separate from a smaller counter-demonstration by Stand Up to Racism group. But throughout the day, clashes have broken out. Officers reported having to intervene as some demonstrators threw bottles and tried to break through police cordons. The Metropolitan Police has stated that 26 officers were injured, 4 of them quite seriously, as they tried to hold back parts of the crowd. Police horses and protective equipment were also brought in to restore order. That's not all. Elon Musk has also virtually joined the far-right rally in central London, which was organized by Tommy Robinson. Now, addressing the crowd at the far-right rally, Musk warned that violence is inevitable, telling them that they must fight back or die. Listen in.
So I really think there's got to be a change of government in Britain. And you can't, we don't have another 4 years or whatever the next election is. It's too long. Something's got to be done. There's got to be a dissolution of Parliament and a new vote held. This is a message to the reasonable centre, the people who ordinarily wouldn't get involved in politics, who just want to live their lives. They don't want. They're quiet. They just go about their business. My message is to them: if this continues, that violence is going to come to you. You will have no choice. You're in a fundamental situation here where whether you choose violence or not, violence is coming to you. You either fight back or you die.
Additionally, anti-immigration protesters have voiced their frustration over illegal migration and what they call government mismanagement. Protesters have stated that they feel that their freedoms are under threat, and they've called for more support for veterans and local communities. Take a look.
It is very important. They need to stop illegal migration into this country. It's tearing us apart. You know, we've got people here, the veterans, our veterans that fought for us and for our freedom, lying on the streets with nowhere to go. But you pop in, get rid of your documents, and you can have a 4-star hotel, free board and lodge.
I think the current government is a disgrace. It's taking away our liberties and making up things as they go along. I've never seen a government so disorganised.
Meanwhile, in response to the anti-immigration far-right rally, a small anti-racism protest has also been organised in central London by Stand Up to Racism group. Now, around 5,000 people attended this event, while police worked to keep them separated from the far-right crowd of over 100,000, preventing any clashes. Now, the anti-racism protesters stated that they marched to make their voices heard and to oppose far-right activism. Listen in.
A very dangerous moment. For the past 3-4 weeks, we've witnessed the far right mobilising up and down the country outside refugee accommodation mainly in a campaign of intimidation against refugees and migrants and Muslims in this country. Tommy Robinson today is going to try and get thousands of those people out on the streets. He's calling it a big free speech festival, but we know this is just an excuse for him to spread some of the worst hatred, division and racism that exists in our society.
You see, I mean, they're taking out all the troubles of the country, which are not caused by immigrants or refugees or anything like that. The trouble of the country is basically the people who've got the power and the money. They're being more and more greedy. The difference between the wealthy and the poor is growing by the day. It's much more now than it was even 10 years ago. And in this situation, it's very easy to blame minorities.
With us on the broadcast is Dr. Satoru Nagao, fellow at the Hudson Institute, joining us live from Tokyo. Thank you so much for taking out time speaking to us on NewsX World. We've just heard what Tommy Robinson had to say. He stated that his protest is it's a counter-revolution against globalism. We've seen the rise of far-right in the United States of America, especially with Donald Trump coming to power a couple of months back once again. We're seeing similar such movements crop up in the United Kingdom. We've seen certain protests also happen in Japan, from where you're joining us. How do you read into the rise of anti-globalism and the right?
Yes, it is interesting because the anti-global movement is very global recently. But anyway, the anti-globalism movement is indeed, it has continued for a long time. But in the past, this is the slogan of the left-wing protesters. But now that we are facing the right-wing protesters say the same thing. So, but there is a common situation between the left-wing protests against globalism in the past, and right-wing protesters demonstrate their way in now. Indeed, which is this demonstration including something violence against others. Why did it has happened? Because protesters are gathered. But at the same time, this situation is a very ideal situation for the people who want to commit violence to enjoy the violence against others. So that's why this kind of protest or demonstration activity is not just a part of the democracy, but also the law and order situation. So indeed, we have to distinguish real protester and or someone who want to commit violence. That is a matter, I think, so because this is different issue indeed. Thank you very much.
All right, Dr. Nagao, I'd like to thank you for taking out time speaking to us on NewsX World today. Meanwhile, viewers, shifting focus to more news coming in. Now, according to reports, China has invited US President Donald Trump to Beijing for a summit with President Xi Jinping. But the White House has not responded as of now. Meanwhile, US Trade Representative Jamieson Craig and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent will join Chinese Vice Premier He Feng in Madrid today for key trade talks. Issues on the table include US's tariffs, TikTok and export controls as well. The discussions come ahead of a Wednesday deadline for TikTok to divest its US assets. China has also launched investigations into US chip policies as well. Now, these talks could reshape trade relations between US and China, of course. So all our eyes are peeled at what exactly will transpire today. With us on the broadcast is Mr. Andrew K.P. Leung. He's a strategist focusing on the economic and strategic policy of China, joining us from Hong Kong. Thank you so much for taking out time speaking to us on NewsX World. At the outset, I'd like to ask you, what are your expectations from the talks that are going to be held today?
Well, if you look at the issues highlighted, including fentanyl, which is a kind of over-exaggerated kind of problem as far as China is concerned. because the import of fentanyl into the United States is not entirely from China. It's through other channels, including Canada and also Mexico and various other channels. And at the end of the day, there is a criminal elements involved in the United States profiting from the infiltration of this fentanyl. So it's just blaming on China. It's just an excuse to put pressure on China, even though China has already professed that it's going to cooperate, and it has cooperated to various extents on the fentanyl, at least the production of some of the elements in this drug trade. Now, as the other it's a much bigger problem as far as the Trump administration is concerned, is to try to pressure China not to buy oil from Russia, so as to stifle the Putin government into submission or into concessions and come to the negotiation table. Well, this has not worked with India, nor is not even more China, because China is now a Trump stranglehold, a Trump card stranglehold over on America's Achilles heel, which is, of course, the rare earths production. China controls 90% or 99% of the top 7 rare earth elements that go into military assets like F-35 fighters. So no other country is in that unique position. So I don't think that China is going to surrender and just bend according to the Trump administration's will. So I think that there's a tussle of negotiations or confrontations between two major powers. And this, of course, is likely to derail and you meet the prospect of an immediate meeting between President Trump and President Xi in Beijing. So I think the meeting of the two leaders, I think, is still on the cards, but it's likely to be pushed back a little, perhaps to the Asian Pacific Summit later on during the year.
All right. Thank you so much, sir, for taking our time speaking to us on NewsX World, presenting your analysis of where exactly will the US-China trade tensions head to next. Meanwhile, we're shifting focus to what's happening as far as the Russia-Ukraine war is concerned. We're now learning that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has urged European allies to stop buying Russian oil, warning that continuing purchases only empowers Moscow's war efforts. He's called on Europe, the US, as well as G7 and G20 nations to impose sanctions without delay. Zelensky has also stressed that cutting Russian oil consumption will directly limit Russia's ability to fight. He's also commented on the US position, stating that it should be heard by all countries which are still relying on Russian supplies. This, of course, comes as US President Donald Trump had earlier stated that the US would impose fresh sanctions on Russia if all NATO members agreed to stop purchasing Russian energy and implement similar measures. With us on the broadcast is Major General Rajan Kochar, Senior Defense Expert, with us from New Delhi. Sir, interesting developments as far as the Russia-Ukraine war is concerned. It seems that both Ukraine and the United States are trying to pressurize G7 nations, European powers, in order to stop the purchase of Russian oil. Now, a majority of Europe is reliant on Russian oil and for their energy sources in order to meet their energy demands as well. And that's not all. The global prices are also kept in check due to the purchase of cheap Russian oil by India and China as well. So in this light, do you think European nations will consider their own national interest, or will they listen to what Zelensky and Trump are saying?
Thank you, Pia, for this discussion. That's a very important aspect because this war is not ending. It's already going into the 4th year. And what is happening right now is that a better sense needs to prevail on Zelensky. Because in case he's going to prolong this war, he is going to prolong the sufferings of his own people. As a leader of a country, you have to be mindful of consequences of war on your own population. He's fighting a lost cause, and according to recent reports, only yesterday I read it, that Russian forces have ingressed upon three major areas of Ukraine, and they are expanding the captured territory which is already captured. So it's almost 20% now, part of Ukraine which Russia has captured. And we also saw the recent strike on Kyiv and on Odessa. So this is going to intensify, and it is going, and I think that's why Zelensky is now running from pillar to post, because he wants this European Union and the NATO countries to exert maximum pressure in terms of sanctions. Sanctions have not worked really. You see, sanctions work with those countries who don't have their own homogeneous resources to handle the situation. And already we have seen China and India are the largest oil importers from Russia. So I don't think these sanctions are going to work. And what you mentioned, national interest, if you look at the economies of these countries, and especially Hungary and Slovakia, which 75 to 80% of the requirement of oil energy is coming from Russia. Still, it is coming from Russia. Their economies are not that strong to sustain this load in case they switch to either Norway or to other sources of supply, including the United States. So I don't think these countries are going to succumb to this kind of a pressure, because G7 is also being told with regard to China also to impose sanctions. It's not going to work this way. See, you cannot do a coercive diplomacy in today's geopolitical scenario. You have to talk to countries, you have to make them understand, and there has to be a give and take in all these things. So, what I'm seeing is that my ultimate analysis is this, that US is going to harden its stand towards Ukraine in case Zelensky is not going to come onto the table, because the US wants Zelensky and Putin to talk and to end the war. Trump is not interested in prolonging this war, because US has spent enough on Ukraine, and I think the dividends are not forthcoming. So I think in times to come, we are going to see immense pressure on Zelensky, and the European Union and NATO countries don't make much of a difference in the war effort as far as Ukraine is fighting the war, because the majority of the weapons and ammunition is coming from the United States. So we'll have to watch this space, how Trump is going to take it forward, because as of now, I don't think Zelensky is relenting to stop this war.
All right, sir. With that, I would like to thank you for taking out time, speaking to us on NewsX World, presenting your analysis of where the war will be headed to next. Meanwhile, viewers, due to paucity of time, it's a wrap on this bulletin.